So I think every time I get on social media, I come back to my podcast to complain about it. So don't keep listening if you're wanting something else. I would say right now, and I know you're probably like, why would you let anyone make you feel some type of way? Because I think the ways in which we've weaponized, right, education is so cruel and it honestly needs to be studied. I don't think we talk enough about how some of us get a little something and then it's like we throw it up in the faces of people. And then it's like social media is this weird space where everybody is like, everything is based on impulse and like, everything is very reactionary. And it's like, I'm seeing these content creators and they're like, you need these hobbies for your kids because this is how they learn and this is what's smart, right? And she's this Black girl and she's like, yeah, in horseback riding and tennis. And it's like, I'm sorry. Did you know that like we couldn't even read up until like the 50s and 60s? Like we had to fight for our right to read. Do you guys realize like we were literally banned? We were freed from slavery, but then banned from going to libraries. Fast forward 2026, public education, they still don't get good books. They get used books. They get books that nobody wants to read, books that don't even help encourage literacy, right? You're reading Hamlet. You up in AP English public school reading you reading the Titanic. You're reading Romeo and Juliet. Ain't no CRT. Ain't no critical nothing. All this is white man jargon and you're just trying to find yourself in it and you're trying to understand it. And it's this, Socrates. And I'm not taking away from that, but it's like, I don't know how we call each other dumb based on I don't know how we call each other dumb based on American principles and American standards for education when we have been kept out of that. I don't know how we call each other dumb and weaponize intelligence and argue and call people dumb and anti-intellectual and argue about throwing dictionaries at one another when just in the 1800s, our Black bodies were the things in which white philosophers, white doctors, the foundation of American medical practices was founded upon. Our bodies were discarded. They seen us as, I told you, when we got free from slavery, they said they have drapetomania. We were put in asylums, freed, sent to mental health madhouses. They said we was crazy. They said something was wrong with us. They said something's wrong with the Black. The Black's head is smaller. The brain is smaller. The structure of the head and the brain and the body is just different. They don't feel pain. Their bodies are larger. But so I don't know how you guys are calling each other dumb, but it's like we go to these institutions and this is what these institutions are founded upon. Like just because somebody can't articulate something in the way in which you could, just because somebody may not know a certain type of word that's going to sound like a certain type of thing, it is not from a freaking dissertation from the University of Howard, doesn't mean that they're dumb. And what's so crazy to me is like, in my real life, all right, real time, I've talked to a lot of Black people who don't have education, who live within these communities that y'all on 1 minute we're advocating for. Like that be the thing with social media. It's like it creates this polarization and we call it delusion, but it's almost like, I don't know. It's like people just become so fake because it's like you can't be online absorbing all this type of stuff and not alter your perception, right? But at the same time, we're sitting here seeing that the employment rate for African-American people is up 27%. White people's have been steady. White Americans, their employment rates have been steady over the last 10 years, 6-7 years. So it's like, what I just want to know, like, what exactly are we doing with the conversation? What exactly are we doing? Are we just talking? Are we just being talking heads? Are we just trying to create content? Are we just trying to, make a way? Or are we really trying to make a change? Are we really trying to be activists? Are we really trying to use our platforms to educate people? What exactly are we doing here besides creating exclusion? Because that's the thing about exclusion, Black people. That's what people don't tell you. Yeah, you get all these degrees, you get yourself up in that pedestal, but guess what? You'll never be accepted into those institutions. So guess what happens? Now you want to come here and talk to us, but you're coming down here talking into us and you're calling us stupid. You're saying that we're dumb. You're saying that our interests are stupid. But whole time we all you got. So all I guess I'm saying is I know it's just the internet. But I'm going to be real with you, Black people. I just think we could be a little bit kinder to one another. If you're going to use your platform to teach. But I have the feeling that maybe you're not, I don't know. You know what I mean? I don't know. I mean, if you know so much, why you not sharing it? Why you not teaching? Why you not giving us a word of the day? Why you not using it in a sentence to explain certain scenarios and things that we're dealing with in the day-to-day up under this administration? and I ain't even talking politics. I'm just talking every day. Since you're so smart, but they say you got your degree and everything, and I'm not coming against degrees. That was a joke. Relax. Take it easy. I'm just saying, I noticed this weaponization. I don't like it because that's what it was when our schools were segregated, right? And our schools desegregated. That's what it was. It was this thing of like, oh, we're smart. We're the smart blacks and y'all are dumb. And y'all think it's okay to beat up on people, call them Uncle Toms or whatever, just because they don't agree with you. Like, I'll never really get the whole thing with the immigree. Like, I really will never get that. And I'm not saying that she's not black, but one thing I do say, and I'm not going to take away from colorism. This is not even about colorism. What I'm about to say does not necessarily negate the context of colorism, because you can never really negate it. Like, I hear you guys loud and clear. And I'm also not sure if she's even a black woman, right? I would imagine she might have some type of association with blackness, and she went on the Keke Palmer show, I would imagine, right? Like, but again, I'm not too knee deep in celebrity, but I understand where we are today, right? And I understand the ways in which influencer culture quite literally shape the lives of middle class, right? It influences those who are of a lower and middle class, right? So at this point, it is what it is, right? We're integrated with celebrities now, even though in reality, they live worlds apart from us, So I just look at certain critique, and I look at certain conversations, and I see how it's okay to beat up on certain people. I see how it's okay to say certain things about certain people. I also see what's not okay to talk about, right? Like, you can't talk about on some level, right, the hypersexuality that pervades our community, right? On some level, you can't talk about the realities that to be a black woman and to excel, right, within American society is to perform some type of sex work, right? You can't really say that, right? You can't say that, but it's okay to beat up on certain people who we feel like have more than us. At the same time, it's okay for people who have more than us to then turn around and beat up on the people who have less. So it's like, I don't know. And I know we're not a monolith. Clearly, we're not moving we're not like a sea of fish. Okay. And we're not moving in the same direction. But like, being on social media just makes me realize, one, I wish people would take more time before they create, right? Like, I know the game is consistency, and I know everybody wants the penthouse, but I think with every economy, and we spoke about this, right? There are different economies that are going to bring about economic opportunity, right? And the thing about the market is that markets rise and they fall. And so when you talk about the creator economy, I can't get too much into that, right? Because I'm not someone who's in that economy. What I will say is that the people that you admire today, right, at the top of the food chain, right, they really got into this market when it was at the height, right? You had content creators who were making YouTube videos since 2008. Right? When there wasn't really a thing as the internet. The computer was in the living room. It was one computer. It was a Dell. You had to crank it up at the bottom. You know what I mean? Like, there was no such thing as having all these apps on your iPhone. We had the BlackBerry. Hello. All right. It wasn't really giving all that, and we start to see that, right? We understand that there was a progression in regards to the internet. And so you have these content creators who have this understanding of YouTube, maybe because where they are is California, which, I mean, I would say that's pretty fair, right? California and New York, cities that are a little bit more progressive, right? Cities that are more advanced, right? Given the immigration, you got, tech companies, right? All those different things, right? They inherit a lot of different, we'll just say it's very diverse, right? So the contributions, right? The culture, it's very progressive in these cities, right? So you got these people in 2008, 2012, 2015, right? They're on YouTube. And I don't think that from a business perspective that these people knew that YouTube was going to be a hit. I think they genuinely just were creating on YouTube because it was free, it was fun, they liked the videos, whatever, right? And then here you have it, right? Nearly 10 years, 9 years later, and boom. Now you have this surge where people are making real money, right? And then you have COVID. People are locked in the house and they're doing nothing but sitting on these phones. People are pushing out this content, right? Who've been doing it for so long. They're starting to see a big payout. And it's like, oh, I'm going to be consistent. And then we start developing these relationships, right? These parasocial relationships, because now I don't think we realize, right? Because I'm not going to say I don't think we realize. I think that's condescending. What I am going to say is I'm so passionate and I'm so fascinated about this time in which we live in. And I would love to be a researcher in real time. Like, you know what I mean? Because you had COVID, and COVID quite literally changed the world. Like PBS spoke about it. It was a documentary on PBS that talked about it. And I watched the one where they were just pretty much saying how Donald Trump and, the administration, they were aware that COVID was here, that there was going to be a surge, and they really downplayed it, right? But it's not even just what took place with the economy. It's not just solely what took place with with our day-to-day lives, right? Like, yes, all of that is encompassing, but I'm talking about what changed for work, right? Like the American way in terms of how we do work in a traditional sense changed. Now, we were already kind of on that rise. People started to discover entrepreneurship. We had the rise of Robert Kiyosaki. You know what I mean? He's coming out. He's a real estate tycoon. Grant Cardone is scamming people. He's on private jets. And it's like, whoa, you know what I mean? People were really starting to cash in on entrepreneurship. And so, we did away with the conversations of like, well, most small businesses fail within 5 years. We did away with mom and pop, right? People were like, oh, you can really get some money, right? So the creator economy happens. The ideal or the standard rather, for how we do work in American society has changed. Right? People couldn't go to work. People lost jobs. Like quite literally, it was like, hey, listen, we're not going to be able to afford to keep people at home. We're not going to be able to afford to comply with these standards of COVID. People can't come into the office. Like we're going to have to just shut it down, right? Mass layoffs, right? Some people were then transported to work from home. That had never really been a thing prior, right? You never really worked from home. Like that wasn't a thing. You would get up, you would go to work, right? And that changed everything. That changed everything in regards to our relationship with our phones. New apps began to surge. Silicon Valley was putting in work. Like it just got crazy. You've seen the uprise and the uptick in Asian hate, but also Asian positive stereotypes in regards to Asian and other, I don't know, what would you say? Like, I don't want to say, we'll say Asian. Yeah. Because that's the continent where, okay, let me stop talking because I don't want to say too much. But we've seen the rise in positive stereotypes about a certain type of immigrant as well, right? And so it's just like that changed everything. And then we were also going through things with like affirmative action. And I think even in that we had this like awareness that, Asians and, they had a more positive stereotype in regards to like intelligence and what was possible and all these different things, right? Because people were kind of talking about college. I remember that little stint where people were talking about college and just how inaccessible it was, right? Now we're at a point where people are like, I don't even know if college is worth it. It's too expensive, right? So that was also a part of a conversation that I think led to a decline in college enrollments. There was a brief stint in regards to trades, but I think for the most part, anybody who is within the working class, if you're not within the working class, you may not know this, but for the most part, if you're working a job, you've been working a job since you graduated high school, right? You've been in the workforce. If you go and acquire a trade, it could work. I'm not saying it's impossible. I don't know. I don't have all the answers. There's exceptions to the rule. I cannot speak on a one-to-one. I can't say, but I do feel like for the most part, you're going to be making pretty much the same amount, depending on what you want to do, of course. But for the most part, it's pretty much the same. And so, yeah, coming down from that high, right? Work changed for us. How we related to one another changed. There used to be a point in time where we had an understanding that much of what we saw on the internet was a skit. We saw people doing really silly things. For me, back in the day, it was called a cinnamon challenge. People would put cinnamon in their mouth and they would record themselves. And it was like a silly little stupid thing. And whoever had the best reaction, right, would pretty much go viral. And it wasn't about being compensated. It was just like, hey, this is fun. This is interesting, right? And maybe you got a little bit of validation from the views, but not really, because our relationships weren't predicated upon social media approval, right? We didn't seek validation from these cell phones. We didn't seek validation through social networking. We sought validation from the people around us. People around us were around us because they liked us, right? And then you have insert Western psychology. You see this rise in therapists. You see this rise in psychologists coming online, dissecting relationships. You also start to see this new wave where people are like, F my parents for the most part. You know what I mean? Like, I don't like the people who raised me. F my family. Sometimes you need to cut your family off, take a break, right? You start hearing this, and then you're hearing things about the somatic work and all of that. And then we see the rise in self-help, right? We see the rise in these sort of like healing practices, these meditative practices, right? We see what's the one girl who she had like the polyamorous relationship. We also seen the introduction where, there's poly. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, well, Jalen, poly has always been a thing. It's always been a thing, but I'm more so speaking about it in regards to trends. I'm talking about it in regards to trends. Yes, things have existed for a very long time, but it changes drastically, right? The way we relate to them, our tolerance for them, right? Our societal normalization of them. Because believe it or not, the American way has been indeed a way, right? Whether or not people were, whether or not that way was an equitable path for everybody, right? That's what we do the work of, that's what we do the work for, right? Here as activists, we do the work for justice, but it's always been a pretty traditional way. And so now you have all these different new customs, and a lot of American citizens are very confused as to what their place is, right? Jobs have changed, the way we relate to one another changed, right? People are more informed than ever, but a lot of that information, I would actually argue, is not anything that's really relevant for their day-to-day lives, right? I mean, hearing about, for example, the content creator who came online and was, basically sharing an experience, how she met some guy and he was, she said that he was dumb. And, I think another thing too, that I find to be very interesting about, not women, I'm not coming down on women, but I'll say people in general, but I have seen videos with women like this today, is you have women who, how can I say this? I'm not going to be insensitive. I think you have people in general who, by societal definition, by societal standards, not even just societal standards, let's take it on a very micro level, right? Communal standards, familial standards, right? People within their orbit are not considered whatever they think that they are, right? And then you kind of have this sort of personality, right? This sense of narcissism that is then bred from the beauty industry, from women being online, seeing their faces all day, filters, all these different things, right? And there's nothing wrong with women feeling beautiful. I think beauty is, simply put, it's a pretty big deal, right? Women have to feel beautiful. You have to feel confident. You have to have a level of self-love about yourself. You should feel, that's the one thing that women want, right? It's at our core, it's to be beautiful. So I want to be mindful of what I say, but what I will say is that I just think these conversations are very interesting, right? These are people who, by and large, in the real world, are not people that everybody is fawning over, right? And it's not that they're not beautiful. It's just that that's just what it is, right? Because the world is unfair. And I think what's very interesting about that is you do kind of start to see this rise in narcissism, and you start to see this sort of justification of bad behavior, right? In regards to women. And it's crazy to me. And you start to see it become so justified that people's attitudes and their character is morphed into, being socially validated for being a terrible person, and obviously this is not a one-off. So I'm not talking about this specific content creator because I can't say whether or not she's a terrible person. But what I will say is that anybody who is reading someone's messages of someone that they met online, not saying she should be grateful to have a man, not saying that she should be grateful to be getting any type of attention. That is not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that we do this thing today online, right? Well, we just wouldn't do it in real life. If there was no social media, the engagement that she shared with the text message she was having with whoever she was talking to, it would have went a lot differently if there was no one to share that with. If she was in her hometown and she was with herself, it would have went a lot differently. And this is not just about her. And I know women and beauty and all these different things is a very sensitive subject. So please hear me out. I'm not being simple-minded. I'm more so talking about the overall inflation, right, that we have about ourselves today. And it's honestly scary, right? It's totally scary. I mean, you can be whoever you want to be, and that's completely fine, but that doesn't mean that the world is going to change around you, right? Who you are is who you are, and your life and how you, those are the things that you're going to carry with you. And it's unfortunate because it's social media inflates that drastically. And so people, we throw the word around delusional, but delusion is really when you're kind of seeing things that aren't there, right? It's when you're seeing yourself as a white woman or a white man and you're a black man or a black woman, right? Somebody would say cognitive dissonance. I think that is a little bit more on the lines of delusion, right? And so it's the false belief of judgment, right? About external reality held to, right? Despite the very evidential, right, reality. So basically, it's evidence to the contrary. So if the reality is that, hey, I know in real time, this is what my reality has been. This is what my experiences are, right? But I get online and all of that changes, right? It's almost scary, like insidious. Like we get online and all of that changes. All of it. I said this before about a content creator who was like a diehard feminist. And I'm not even talking about advocating for women. No, I'm talking about very much teetering on man hating, very much encouraging some form of like lesbianism. Like it just was crazy. And now this creator is reckoning with the reality, reckoning with all these different things. And I'm not going to get into this person because this is a little too deep and this is not meant to be judgment. This is not meant to be any of that, right? But I'm just more so saying all that to say the communities that we create online absolutely become the prisons that we set for ourselves. I was listening to the Atlantic podcast. I think it was the Atlantic. And they were talking about a content creator. Maybe it wasn't the Atlantic. Child, I don't know. I have a few main ones that I keep in rotation. But there was a content creator who basically was online doing a different type of work. Right. And this content creator decided that they no longer wanted to engage in that type of work anymore. They wanted to go off and do something else, and pretty much found that they were essentially confined to the path that they had created, the community that they had built online. And they were asking people to stop sharing the things they had posted. And that's the thing about the internet, right? Like it's crazy. Like it's hard to kind of break out of what you create. And I think that's why I have always encouraged you guys. I ain't gonna say I always encourage you guys, but I know for me, I try to use this platform very sparingly, very much intentionally, very much to share the things that I'm learning in real time, right? Very much to kind of, like I said, share the things that interest me. And it seems to have worked. I think a lot of people like, or the people who are here are interested in what it is that I'm doing. But like, I never wanted to go viral. I don't want to be famous. I don't want a lot of people to find my platform. Like, it's just, you always kind of have that what if, right? Like, oh, what if? But there is something so serene about me getting offline and living my life in real time. There is something so serene about existing in the world and no one knows me. There is something so serene about having experiences that are mine, right? Living my life in a way that is so true and so real and so genuine and relatable to me that I just don't think that no amount of fame, no amount of notoriety, I don't care how many apartments you get down in South Beach, Florida, it will never, ever, ever amount to being someone who gets to live their life every day. You know what I mean? And notice how I just left it there. Live their life every day, period. You know what I mean? Like live your life in a way that's authentic to you. You know what I mean? I've had like bits and little stints as long as I've been on the internet, right? I'm Gen Z millennial, of what happens when a lot of people start to engage with the work that you do. What happens when a lot of people start to find you online? And it's a very scary thing. It's a very scary thing. I don't think it's worth it. I don't want to be chained to this phone. You know what I mean? I don't want to be chained to this phone. I don't want to be, I do not. And then people, well, there's different ways. Yeah, there's different ways. But I also think for me personally, and I've been like, I want to find my way in the world. You know what I mean? Like if social media, if the Lord, and I mean the Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ himself, decided, you know what, shorty, he's never going to talk to me that way. But, right, we're not going to mix the worldly with the godly. All right, praise the Lord. Oh, what's today, Saturday? Okay, I'm tripping. I'm thinking about something. But if God decided that was his will for me, like seriously, real time, then I believe he will prepare me for it, and that's what will be. But like, it's so slow. I don't want it. I'm literally telling you, like, I don't want it. I do not want it. The moment that you come online, it is lights, camera, action. And I've told you guys this from the very beginning of time. That is how the human brain engages with media. That is how we engage with cameras. Psychologically, fundamentally, call it our animal brain. We know that there is something inhumane about constantly being recorded, constantly being filmed, constantly looking at your, like, that is not normal. It's just not normal. It's not normal. It changes us. It absolutely changes us. And so that's what you see today. And I was talking about this on a YouTube short, and I said, no, really what we have today is people are not desensitized. I said, one, people are at their capacity, because the reality is that, right, while you're calling people ignorant, while you're calling people stupid, the reality is that Black unemployment rates are down. I've never before seen so many women and girls homeless. Okay. Black women and girls homeless. Okay. They are coming up with all of these housing projects under the guise of affordability when quite literally nobody can afford them. They have single-handedly gentrified every low-income community. People are literally unhoused. People are homeless. Okay? People are homeless. College has gone up. Okay. College has gone up. The job rates in the market has gone down. Everything that we have today is by the grace of God. Okay, there is no play by play. You see why you don't hear to earn your leisure. You don't hear these people no more. Why? Because there is no play by play. There is no plan. Traditionalism done, thrown it away, up in the air. We just out here, billionaires having their way, taking over the whole planet. Quite literally, we just out here with the vibes. We out here on a day-to-day basis. Do you you know what I mean? But then we get online and we want to call people stupid. People out here trying to figure it out. People are online trying to learn. So what? They didn't have the certain type of education. You didn't have mother, father, people, such and such, put you to school. Then you went to good schools. Like, okay, so we're on the self-made myth. Got it. Okay. Love that. That's where we're at. Okay, cool. Okay, great. I'm just glad that, we're having the conversation. So people come online to learn. Like I said, there was a point in time where Black people couldn't even go to the library. We couldn't go there. We literally could not go in the library. There was no reading. So I just want to know, and I'm going to finish up with this. Being Black is more than barbecues, young Black boys and girls. Let me sit down here. Y'all going to age me. I'm going to have to be granny before I know it. It's more than barbecues. It's more than wigs and weaves. It's more than being fashionable. It's more than being creative. It's more than being an entertainer. It's more than grills. It's more than fashion. I think I said that already. It's more than a good laugh. It's more than the quote unquote internet cookout. Okay. Being Black is a real responsibility. Do you know what I mean? Like, as a Black man, as a Black woman, when you become of age, you have a right, to take up your cross, okay? And do what's best for your community. Do what's best to pave a better future for those who are going to come behind you that are Black, okay? Because I know what you guys are thinking. The mixed babies is going to take over. And I'm telling you right now, that's not what it's going to be. It's not what it's going to be. We're not going to be outbred. We're not going to be whitewashed. Okay? That's not what it's going to be. And so whether that's raising your children in a way and doing the very best you can to give them a good foundation of a healthy sense of self-esteem, right? Excuse me. Whether that's being a community leader and ensuring that the elders, right? Those who are seniors, okay? Within the community have access to fresh veggies. All right. Y'all know what it is. If they retired, they're not working. Trump cut and snap. They're cutting all the government assistance programs. Maybe that's ensuring that, I don't know, maybe you should start a garden or something. I don't know. There's a lot of empty lots, especially in Black communities. There's a lot of that. They're no longer saying it's a food desert. They're saying it's food apartheid, right? Because it's been racism that has intentionally left our communities barren of healthy foods. And it makes sense, right? Black communities don't get whole foods. You know what I mean? And I always thought that was interesting because, you have on one end, it's like, yes, we are deprived of economic opportunity. But on the other hand, we are consumers. And I would actually argue that the Black dollar is, a pretty big contributor, right, in regard to the American economy. So why aren't we getting Whole Foods? Why is our nearest Kroger's, further and further away, So, yeah. And even if it's not on that big level, maybe you can be the educator in your community. Maybe you can have a podcast where you come on and talk to people and you do your part. But everybody has to do their part, whatever that looks like for you. We all have to do our part. And so sitting around calling other Black people dumb, I misuse words. I don't always know what you know what I mean? I might not say the right word, but that doesn't mean I don't know what I'm talking about. You see what I'm saying? And that's what kind of bothered me a little bit about that video. Not because it's that serious and it's not even that deep. She's a young woman. It's a content. It's a video. It's a key. But more so because this is the culture that we're kind of breeding. And the only person who's hurting is us. Only person who is hurting is us. What? So what? You know what I mean? And this is the thing, we're showing around, we're asking people to read these cards. I would think a better video would be, hey, did you know this and that about such and such? Or what do you think about what's going on with Trump? And what you think is going on? What you think? What's an encouraging message you could say? Stuff like that. Stuff that's a little bit more uplifting. And I know it's content. I know people love a humiliation ritual, right? It's entertainment. People, and I get it. It's not that deep. It is deep, but it's not that deep because the people who are creating it don't really create with that level of consciousness. But I just think it gets to a point where it's like, when do we start to get serious about ours? When do we start to get, like, we go into law school and we're saying we want to defend Black people, but then we're turning around and we're humiliating people, strangers, might I add, who never consented to be on your social media, right? Because they misspelled a word. Not that they used the word out of context. Very much knew what they was talking about. You know what I mean? Very coherent. Very much in alignment. But it's like, oh, because they, like, I don't get y'all. And then we're coming up against Black people who went to Duke, who went to Michigan, who went to Yale. Like, I don't get it. If you're so up and you're so up and mighty, why are you down here communicating with us? We're your friends. Where are your people who went to the same schools? Why y'all not kumbaya? Why you in my face? Why you in my algorithm? Why you even in my, what's that? Why you at the community events? If that's how you really feel. So that'd be the thing. And I was saying with the whole immigrant thing, is just like, you know, I ain't even actually going to get on that because quite frankly, I won't even bother. But my point is, it's time to be more responsible with these platforms. I'm sneezing. I got the AC on, y'all. It's cold. That's exactly how I like it. And it's me, because it's like, it gets to a point. Like, girl, if you're in here sniffling, you might need to, never mind. But it gets to a point, though, seriously, where, you know, we have to be more responsible with these platforms. We got to be more responsible with our platforms. We got to be more responsible about the work that God has entrusted us to do. If you're creating and you really feel like that's what you're supposed to be doing, use it for good. It's not going to kill you to be positive. It's not going to kill you to be somebody who stands for something. You know what I mean? You're not going to be wishy-washy. Today it's Black power, Black people. Then tomorrow it's F Black men. Or let me stop saying that. It's, you know, negative things about Black men, right? Or negative things about Black women, right? Which side are you standing for? Are you with us? Or are you against us? You know what I mean? Like, we got to be a little bit more mindful. And I'm not trying to create a revolutionary. I'm just trying to say, let's think a little bit more positively. Let's stay focused. Okay, that's all I'm saying. Let's stay focused. Let's stay focused. We can't accomplish anything when everybody is here today, gone tomorrow. Like I said, you went to law school, so what you about to do with that? Are you planning? And then that'd be the thing too. I don't be understanding about like this new culture and like the whole dating thing and like women and men and like how women be interacting with men today. Cause it's like, okay, do you like guys? Like, you know, what are you looking to gain by trying to humiliate a person? Like, I don't get that. I don't get that. This ain't about marriage. This ain't about trying to be, no, I just don't get how y'all are showing up today. I'm just not really understanding it. And if you don't want you don't want to be subjected to that type of scrutiny, then stop posting your reactions online. Give stuff time to simmer. I just was seeing online too, content creator comes on, tells this whole story about their husband and everything. And I realized that just because somebody else would do it and I wouldn't do it doesn't mean that it's wrong. But I also feel like at the same time, like, give stuff time to settle before y'all come on here trying to do a story time Q&A. Like, why? And this is what I was saying in my YouTube short when I said, we're not desensitized. People just have lost the capacity. You got so many people who we don't even know if they lying. There's a content creator who are here like, yeah, my life is in danger. Call the police. Like, girl, we don't even know where you at. Like, what are you even talking about? You know what I mean? How are we going to protect you? And I'm actually not even going to that's not funny. That's really sad. But it's just like, what do you want us to do? You know, and I'm not saying it in that way, but it just be like, you know, so I say we're desensitized. I don't think we're desensitized. I think that people are more so preferential in regards to what they give their energy to. Because regardless of how we show up on these apps, everybody dealing with real stuff in real time. You know what I mean? People dealing with real stuff in real time. Not everybody is put up. Not everybody is, you know, doing so great. You know, and sometimes it's not even a matter of you struggling. You know, sometimes it's your family. Sometimes your family is going through. You know what I mean? Sometimes it's your mind. You're trying to get your mind right. You know what I mean? You're also trying to grapple with the undoing of traditionalism and chaos being the replacement. You know what I mean? You're also trying to grapple with the things that you're engaging in every day. And so it's not that we don't have empathy for strangers who come online. One, we also know that people do is say a lot of things now for money. Right? Like, people will literally have a whole thing with their spouse, with their kids, whatever. And it's like, it was all just to get more money. And they don't care. They have no regard for the fact that, you know what I mean? People are invested. For them, it's like, it was never that serious, or, oh, it was just social media, right? You know, you start justifying yourself at a certain point. you know? So there's that. And then, like I said, people have real life going on. It's not that people don't care. It's just like most times you're helpless. Maybe you can donate to a GoFundMe, but it's like, what good is it going to do you to care about all of your parasocial relationships problems when it's like, you got stuff going on in real life, so it's not that we're desensitized. It's just like I think that on one level, the reality is that we have to compartmentalize, we really do. So yeah. And I also think we're more performative. I think we want, we like a performative type of empathy, right? We're expecting this type of outrage, when people share certain things. And when people say, oh, well, people are like, oh, this is insensitive or whatever. And maybe it is, but I do just think the reality is that we don't know this person. And yes, maybe this person has, shared so much of their life with us online. And so maybe there's some truth to that. But I also think there's the other thing of like, we don't really know you, so why are you sharing this with a bunch of strangers, this very intimate thing, right? And the only thing I can guess is because the reality is that money is on the line. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, right? We all got to get paid, right? But I will say that that's a very interesting relationship. I think when you start demanding, emotional availability from strangers, right? And the people that you interact with on a day to day. And it's like no regard for the reality that we're living in under this administration, So I don't know. There's a lot I can say, but I think I made my point. I hope you guys got something from this. I hope you listened all the way through. If you listened all the way through, let me know your thoughts in the comments. Peace.